Welcome. I have to add a couple of things on Guido's nice introduction. Something about my background. I'm a farmer's son. So when Tom asked us who is the son of a farmer, I am one. And also going through the web pages of this conference about human scale, I grew up on in a little community with just a local school. That was about it, only farmers. And we had a rule system in place called Noberschap. That's Saxon Dutch dialect for kind of a neighborship system. So basically neighbors, basically farmers and farmers' wives helping each other with equipment, with harvesting, etc. And unfortunately, and that's also to some extent a bit the case of some of the systems I'm describing. So I'll talk about mutual funds, rotating credit associations, and local exchange trading systems. Mutual funds. They basically were in between, for those of you who want to know the full history, in between the guilds in the medieval times and the trade unions and the welfare state. So basically workers organizing themselves, putting money in, and that basically would create a common pool, and that would be enough to cover them for the hazards of all these things: illness, unemployment, death, etc. You also could think of in an illegal or semi-legal setting, Polish workers in the horticultural sector in the Rotterdam, The Hague region. They could organize it at a small scale, semi-legal, put money in and insure them against the hazards of unemployment. It would be an experiment. That shows kind of where within our kind of modern society there's still some room, although at the fringes of society, maybe in the semi-legal or in the immigrant communities, opportunities for a mutual fund. Rotating credit associations. That's talking about now about people that want to establish a business, want to get their kids a proper education. They may be discriminated by the banks, or banks don't know how to treat them. They maybe don't know how to get access to information, resources, etc. They organize it by themselves. They put money in a kind of a common pool. And you would say like, hey, that's pretty dangerous, but everyone is committed to run this pool for a moment of time. So for instance, this is used how Surinamese parents kind of get funds for their kids to study. And then the pressure on the child is enormous because of the pressure from the parents, like, hey, we negotiated a loan through this rotating credit association, but also the pressure is high on the Surinamese parents because they got a loan, and also the people running this rotating credit association also put pressure like, hey, how's your kid doing? Can we help, etc. So it basically becomes okay, an economic investment activity, but also a social thing. Last thing, that's about LETS, local exchange trading systems. That's a community trading system without money. And that's something I kind of, when I was preparing this talk, I thought about all the crises with the banks, the problems in Europe with the Mediterranean countries. What about a world without money and relying upon barter, so direct exchanges, exchange of goods for services, or that would be one way. An alternative is, and that's common in these local exchange trading systems, that is a proxy for money, near money, an alternative for money that's based on credits. Because local exchange trading systems, you would find them in peripheral communities. It was originally set up in Canada, in British Columbia, a small town that suffered from two setbacks. One, there was a large army base which closed down, and there was a pulp factory that also closed down. So people were thinking of leaving, and also the money was leaking out. So there was this guy, Michael Linton, who came up with the idea like, hey, we don't have a lot of money, and also money is leaking out because people will take their money to the banks. They want to get a return on investment. They want some interest. And also, they may discriminate against us because we are basically unemployed. We don't have a lot of means, so we have to organize it ourselves. So he came up with a system of points, credits, vouchers, where people help each other. So one may kind of need a haircut, and then they agree on a certain kind of a payment in terms of credits, and the other one may help the same person through some gardening, or they write it down that you have done something, and also maybe you may post a month later that you want to have something done. So those were kind of, in a nutshell, 3 alternative systems, basically dealing with insurance, an alternative for insurance, investing, and also for trading. Maybe like informal rules, informal systems, but they have some rules. I already kind of mentioned this peer group pressure is enormous. Also in the microfinance systems, that's the reason why the Grameen Bank and Yunus and his people are so successful. Because it's on the one hand, people feel committed. Either they work with money from the Grameen Bank, or they have this system in place because they want to manage it, or for this rotating credit association. Okay, now you're negotiating a loan for your kid or for your own business, but next time you will be managing the fund because you're the rotating banker of the fund. You're very kind of committed. You're also aware of, hey, if someone takes the money and runs, we're all in big trouble. So there is a kind of a transparency, but also a very strong peer group control.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I would like to ask you the following. Do you think, looking at 100 years ago until now, that we are witnessing the rise and fall of the regulatory state? And should this imply a revival of the civic society? And if so, how do we get there, since the mindset of the post-war generation here in Europe is that the government is taking care of everything?
I think for the government, a mixed. I think the government is as a mixed blessing. I would support an active role for the government in dealing with infrastructure. That's something about in the telecom sector, the water sector, food stuff, etc. We can't rely upon self-regulation or industry organize it by themselves, because then the consumer would be hit hard or wouldn't get any information from pharmaceutical industry. So that is, without any doubt, that the government should play a regulating role. I think that the state should play a central role, but maybe at the fringes there should be some room for, call it, experimentation, bottom-up initiatives, and for people that aren't served, that there may be some room for some bottom-up initiatives. So hopefully kind of a best of both worlds.